So I'm going to say it was 2017, I do believe, but I decided to start a segment on Canton's Morning News called Share the Good Stark County. So we took applications from a lot of people, and we chose one to be our very first. And it just so happens it was Compassion Delivered. What did I know about Compassion Delivered? Absolutely nothing. So I met this young lady, and that was 9 years ago. Amanda Anschutz and her husband, Daniel, who's the chef, have just created an unbelievable organization here. So how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so glad I could come and visit.
I'm glad you could come visit too. I actually laughed because you said, "What did you know about Compassion Delivered?" And you said nothing. And I want to say I didn't know anything either. So I think it's fair to say that we were both on the same level playing field at that moment because we really didn't know what we were getting into. But 9 years later, it has been an incredible roller coaster of blessing, honestly. So we are in a different location. When you and I first met, we actually didn't have a place for you to come because we were making meals in our house. And it felt really weird to invite you into our home to just kind of interview about what we're doing. So we met at a local church.
Right.
And then shortly after that, we grew out of our house to do the organization. And we moved to a few other locations before we landed where we currently are now, which is Evermore Community Church in Hartville. We actually moved here in 2020 because of something that was happening in another church that we were at. They had a gas leak and we couldn't make meals there anymore. And so Evermore generously opened their doors. We said, hey, we'll be here for just a few months. Don't worry. Well, here we are still. So, but we have outgrown what they have graciously allowed us to use. And so in 9 years, just to put some real quick numbers behind it, we have now given over 70,000 meals for free. And we've helped over 700 families here and individuals here in Stark County.
So folks who are just, trying to find out what Compassion Delivered is, explain to them what you guys do.
Sure. So we provide healthy meals to anybody that's been diagnosed with a life-threatening or terminal disease here in Stark County. Doesn't matter the age, doesn't matter the income. They need to live in Stark County and they need to have a diagnosis of a life-threatening or terminal disease. And the meals are free. So we basically say, this is not a handout. This is us coming alongside you and navigating this next stage of life that is uncertain, that has a lot of unknowns, but we just get to help you with the food and make sure that you have a good, nutritional meal to kind of combat what you're going through. And so we have meal recipients that have been with us for years, and we have meal recipients that have just started last week.
So what brought this to the mind of yours and Daniel's?
Yes.
How did you come up with it?
Well, neither one of us had ever imagined that we would start a nonprofit. That was not in our wheelhouse. We were doing life. We were enjoying what we were doing. Daniel is a chef, culinary trained chef. So he was in the country club lifestyle at the time as an executive chef at a local country club. And I was working in corporate America. We were doing our thing. Well, we were married in September of 2015. And so this year will be 10 years for us, which is incredible. But then we started merging our finances together like you do when you get married. And I made a donation to a nonprofit in Denver, Colorado, because my cousin worked there. And the funny part is I had been doing that for a while. And so, so when I made this donation, Daniel said, well, what's this about? And I said, well, it's a donation to the nonprofit my cousin works for in Denver. He's like, great. What do they do? And I was like, I don't know. And so, so obviously I like to be generous. I don't really ask questions. I'll just be generous. And he said, well, could you find out? And so my cousin and I are super close. So I made this call and I said, hey, cuz, like, what is it that you do? And he was like, are you kidding me? He's like, you don't pay attention. And I said, clearly I don't. So, so he tells me that this nonprofit at the time, 25 years in their making, that they provided healthy meals to people in Denver, Colorado that were going through a life-threatening or terminal disease. And I just remember being like so proud that that was what he was doing. And it didn't matter. Like he could have been helping homeless. It would have just been an incredible eye-opener for me to just be proud of what he was doing.
Yeah.
But because it was food and because Daniel is a chef, it resonated with us. And so he said, well, let's find a nonprofit locally that's supporting people very specifically with, nutritional food who are helping people that are diagnosed with life-threatening or terminal disease, and no questions asked. And so we started making phone calls, and we found that there are so many incredible nonprofits in our area. But what we found was that there wasn't a specific one that focused on this at any age, any income. And so, ironically, when we started talking about it, doors started opening. And it was wild because we were not expecting that to happen, but God just started opening doors. And before we knew it, we had all the groundwork laid out. And it was like, now that we know that there's a problem, because in 2016, both Mercy and Altman Hospital shared with us that there was 2,200 people in Stark County alone that could benefit from what we were doing.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember just being overwhelmed and just thinking, like, that's 2,200 people that can't go to the store, who go to the store, don't have the energy to make the meals, don't have the energy to eat the meal after making it, or don't even have the financial resources to be able to even do that. And so we said, okay, well, now that we know there's a problem, we were raised to fix it, not pass it along. And so we said, well, if we're going to do this right, then one of us needs to leave our job and go all in. And so I stepped away from my job at the end of the year, and we went all in. And in the beginning, we started with 6 people that were eyes, ears, and taste buds. And now we are serving over 100 spots every week. And it's just been an incredible journey ever since.
Because people don't realize the importance of the meals to somebody who is sick.
Right.
They need to be healthy, try to be healthy, eat healthy, that kind of thing. What kind of foods are there that your husband's whipping up in the kitchen?
That he's currently making right now. That's going to smell really good in a little bit. So each meal is really thoroughly thought through, because when somebody's going through treatment, especially, whether it's cancer or kidney, end-stage renal failure, kidney disease, the foods that you put in your body are really critical to how you're going to handle treatment. So using good plant vegetables, good carbohydrates, good proteins, that's really important. So we make sure that everything we get, we know where it's coming from. We know that it hasn't been, treated with all the chemicals. We're using things that are as pure as possible to their natural state. And we just make sure that they look good and they taste good, and everything is low sodium. But you don't need to add all the extra fillers to make them taste good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's not just you and your husband, like you said. You've got so many volunteers, but you also have special things that you do besides the meals, right?
Absolutely. So we always say the meals are what gets us in the door to have a seat at the table. And so when we deliver on Fridays, because we make everything fresh and then we freeze them so that the people can eat them when they want to. And something that's really a misconception a lot of times is that people think it's not enough food. But when you're sick, it's actually more food than what you're actually eating. So they get 3 containers that look like this, and each of them have the labels, on them with what they are. And each one can have anywhere between 1 to 3 servings of food. So they get 3 of these. So they could have enough food to last the whole week. And then they get 2 16 ounces of homemade soup. So when they don't feel like a meal, they can have soup. But the part that I love the most is how we get the meals to the door. So when we first started this, we were like, we just bought generic paper bags. And our oldest daughter was like, can I decorate one of these bags? And we're like, sure, okay, and so she did. And we delivered it that following Friday. And I remember the woman that received it was so excited. She just was like, that's a beautiful bag. Like, who did this? And so we opened conversations, and now we have had over, I believe the new number is like 8,000 bags. I think that's what I looked at the other day. Decorated here in Stark County, all over Ohio, actually. People are decorating these bags, and they become treasured work pieces of art. So kids in school, we work with a lot of different school systems, Girl Scout groups, youth groups, family groups, whatever it might be, they're decorating these bags. But this one I pulled out because this one is such a special one to us. So in 2020, we had a woman call us, and she said, I want to volunteer. And I said, wonderful. Well, you can come in the kitchen. And she goes, well, that's going to be really hard for me because I live at a nursing home and assisted living, and I don't leave. But is there something I can do? And I said, well, you can write encouragement cards or decorate bags. And she says, well, I love to draw. And so we took some bags, and her name is Thelma. And Thelma has been decorating bags for us since 2020. And Thelma is 101 years old now. And she faithfully still decorates bags. And so this is one of her bags, and this is like how detailed they are. And it's just incredible. It's just an
Yeah,
incredible,
it's a little piece of,
incredible thing.
it
Is.
would cheer people up
It
for
really
sure.
would.
No
It really
doubt.
would. And
No
so,
doubt.
and then the other part of this is our encouragement cards, because this actually happened. We were working with Greentown Elementary in 2018, and the teacher said, "Hey, the kids want to write some cards to the people that are going to get the meals." I said, "Great." So they started writing these cards, and I was still delivering at the time. I do deliver from time to time, but not as faithfully as I did in the beginning. And so I was delivering to this gentleman who had been diagnosed with stage 4 stomach cancer, and he was really, really quiet gentleman. He had served our country, and so when I started delivering to him, I was including these cards inside the bag. And so the next week I go back and there'd be another card on this table and so forth and so on. And so about 4 or 5 weeks into it, I go in and there's these cards sitting on the table, and he looks at me and he says, "I need to talk to you." And I was like, "Ooh, he's going to fire me probably or something." So I said, "So what's going on?" And he said, "I want to talk to you about my kids." And I said, "Well, oh," and I thought he meant his adult children. And he goes, "No, no, no, these kids." And he started reading these cards to me. And he said, "How did they know? How did they know that I just needed a word of encouragement today?" And that really was a powerful moment for me, because the written word is one of the most powerful things that we have as humans. And when you write it down, you don't get it back. I mean, you can write it out, but it's so powerful because our meal recipients can read these over and over again and remember that they haven't been forgotten and that they're not alone in going through this. So this is just as important as the bag itself. And then the one really fun piece that I love so much is Send a Friend. And so this company in 2020 reached out to us, and we wanted to find something that was unique, that we could be a little more intentional about, kind of just that comfort level. And so this company started because of COVID and wanting to be intentional with sending something to somebody across the country. And so they came up with these high quality stuffed animals. And each one, you don't know what you're going to get. So when you open the box, it's different. So today it's the purple dinosaur, which I absolutely love. And so this is something that we are able to share, and everybody that starts with us gets their own personal stuffed animal. And I have heard
It's different
stories.
every time,
It's different
right?
every time.
Yeah.
And what I love about it is that they can have them with them when they go to treatment. They can share them with their loved ones when they come over. It just gives them another way of letting them know they haven't been forgotten.
And they're soft and cozy.
And they are. They're so awesome.
They're so cute.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So we're just being a little more intentional with just more than a meal.
It's
But it's
exploded.
really about that. Yeah,
It really has
is.
exploded in so
It
many
really
different
has.
ways.
Yeah.
And in no way that you could have ever planned.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Which is amazing.
Which has been a blessing. And what we deal with, to be very real with you, is that, we're dealing with loss, because the majority of the people that come to our program are not going to outlive their diagnosis. And so over the 9 years, we have lost a significant amount of people. And it's hard, because if we didn't have these fun things to put into it, it would be a really sad thing to do. But we're grateful that we can still have some fun along the way and still bring some good, just to love on them. I mean, I feel blessed that I've had the opportunity to know over 700 people that I would have never gotten a chance to know. I don't like knowing them for the reason I have to know them, but my life is so much more blessed because of knowing them.
So if there are people out there watching right now and they know somebody that would just fit in perfectly, how do they go about getting help?
So they can reach out to us on our website, which is compassiondelivered.org, or they can call us at 330-575-0996, and we'll get them connected.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'm so,
Thank you.
And the original video is on our YouTube channel, which we laughed because it's the very first one I did, and the very first one you did, and we're just kind of like, And
so much
and you
has
said
changed.
what? What did you say about that first interview when you watch it back?
I didn't know what I was doing. I just didn't know what I was doing. So it was incredible.
It's fun.
Yeah,
so you can
it
kind
is.
of get a perspective of where it all was, and that's
for
why I wanted
sure.
to come back, because
Yes.
the story is worth telling, obviously, because you guys do such a wonderful
appreciate
thing.
it.
But
Thank you for supporting us.
hey, I love it, and
Absolutely.
and we have a gala to join together.
We do in a couple
we?
months. Our gala is October 17th. It's our biggest fundraiser, and it's going to be incredible. We're gearing up for the 10 years, and we've got some exciting news on the horizon. Our next 10 years is going to be even bigger than those last 9 years. But I will say that we are entering a time now that is going to look bigger than what Daniel and I could have ever imagined.
That's
But
great.
we're excited.
I'm excited
So
too.
yeah.
Well, it's good
Very
to see
good. Good
you.
to see you too.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.